Your insights and sharings are as profound and unconventional as they get. With all the awareness that you create in the world through your work, what result would make it evident that your message has been well received?
I'm not really trying to give any message to the world. I mean, I don't really have any interest in having the world get anything from anything. I don't really respect the world. I don't really have any regard for the world. I think the world is just a flea market. It's just a manufactured cosmetic place of neon lights and, distracting sounds. And it doesn't really have any relevance to me. So if somebody happens to get something from, what I write, I receive a bunch of emails. So and so has gotten such and such from my writings. That's good for them. But, I don't really have an intention to like get this message out, have people learn this, or it just doesn't interest me. I do everything just because I'm moved to do it. I don't really have a desire for the world to get anything.
Interesting you say that. For all the, should I say, repulsion that you have for the world, you spend so much of time and energy in sharing your ideas and teachings.
That's my art. If someone paints, then they paint. I enjoy writing. It's what I've done since all my life. I'm fundamentally a writer. So I just combine writing with my exploration of truth in whatever domains that I'm interested in.
What do we need to uncondition ourselves from that will start to serve us better?
I don't really think there's any kind of us in the world. I think it really comes down to a person and an individual themselves. If someone is cold and they want to become warm, they can put on a blanket. They can go stand in the sun, and both of those things will make their body warm. Now, the blanket is there and the sun is there. If they want to make themselves warm and they don't use the blanket doesn't care. And if they don't use the sun doesn't care. Everything in this world is about all these so-called experts, which are really annoying, going around talking all this nonsense about 5 ways to become happy and 10 ways to become spiritual. And it's all just garbage in a dumpster. I mean, these are things created for the masses. They're not created for anybody real. It's just paper mache. It's just all tabloids and nonsense. Just people like to hear themselves speak. They like to become a so-called influencer and have others follow them and say good things about them. And it's all just like one big cocktail party where everyone's posing and trying to feel significant. And the more people they can get to do what they say, the more significant they feel. And it's all just garbage. If a human being really wants to get somewhere, and for not for any like just they just do, they're just moved towards climbing a mountain. I mean, the mountain climber doesn't climb a mountain because he'll get more likes and shares on stupid Instagram, or on social media. He does it because he's moved to do it. And I don't have anything against Instagram. If you want to put up cooking photos of Instagram or whatever photos, I don't really care. That's fine. It's a medium. But if someone is moved because they want to get attention for it, it's not real. And it doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make it evil, and it's not against the law, and that's fine. You can do it. But if someone is really moved to do something, then the only real place is the truth. And the truth isn't spiritual or any. The spirituality is nonsense. I mean, the truth isn't spiritual. The truth isn't, self-help. The truth is that there's a truth about the way things work. If you put a key into a lock, that isn't spiritual. The lock didn't open because it was spiritual. The lock didn't open because it was a good self-help and you did good practice and you did your mantras and you said your self-aphorisms that day or any garbage. The key opened because it was truth. That particular lock, was made to fit that particular key, and therefore it opened. There's nothing mystical there. That's just the truth. And it isn't a good truth and it isn't a bad truth. It's just the truth. And so that's what I'm devoted to, because that's the only thing there is, right? There really isn't falseness, right? There is in the world. It's all false, but it doesn't exist. Lies don't exist. Practices don't exist. All these prescriptions, how-tos, methods, techniques, hacks, all this garbage that's fine for mechanical things, but outside of the mechanical domain, they don't really exist. I mean, you can do them if you want, but you just go in circles for your whole life. So everything is about reality, what's real, not what you should do and practice this and practice that and jump up and down and do all this nonsense circus acts. And it's just, I don't have any interest in that. To me, that's deplorable. It's a waste of a human life, and a human life is very precious. And to waste it is really inexcusable.
What is the truth, though?
Well, the truth is whatever thing that you're searching for, right? So if you're searching to become world class in something, there's a truth for that. If you're searching for how to find peace, there's a truth for that. Like there's truths for all that. There's a key that unlocks those particular locks.
So, would it be fair to say that the truth is a deeply subjective experience? The way I see the world through my filters and my mental models, they
Your
will see the
mental
world.
models are not from you. They're from the
Okay.
world, right? These
Sure.
mental models and all this non-intellectual garbage, it's just from it's just you didn't even, that word came to you from social media. It came to you from
Or
reading a book.
psychology, sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
psychology, or you weren't born with that. Now your bones, your femur, your lungs, your arm, your heart, those didn't come from a book. They didn't come from an influencer. They didn't come from some idiotic guy writing a book about how to get a heart, right? And that makes them real. They're natural. They're intrinsic. That makes them real. So all of the stuff. So when you say my truth is this and that, you don't really look at the world through truth. I'm not picking on you. That's just how everybody. You could be anybody in the world. It doesn't matter. Everyone's the same, right? They're all chasers. So that isn't your truth. That's your opinion. That's your belief. That's your conditioning. So the only way that, like, you would even have anything real to say, like every time everyone opens their mouth, what are they opening their mouth with? They're opening their mouth with things that have been packed in there, that they've accumulated. They're parrots, right? Everyone's a parrot. So when you open your mouth and say X, Y, and Z, that X, Y, and Z isn't yours. Those are these mental models and stuff. This language that you've learned is language that you've picked up from the world. There's no relation between that and truth. What you call it, my truth. There's no relation between that and truth. So I'm not saying that it's my truth. I'm saying everything has a truth. There are some truths that are unique to a situation, and then there are truths that are absolutely foundational and they're universal to all situations. But it's very difficult to have these kind of conversations, so I normally don't, because everyone will come at it using the baggage and the tools of the world, right? You will ask me questions based upon the same way that you ask everyone else questions. And I'm not saying I'm special, but I'm saying the truth is special. And I'm saying that nobody that you've ever spoken to speaks the truth to you, because that's not where they live. It isn't because they're bad or they're trying to trick you. No, there's nothing to do with that. That's not who they are. That isn't their life. And because of that, you're going to bring your regurgitations of garbage. They're going to give you their regurgitations of garbage. You're going to bring your social influencer language. They're going to bring you. It's just garbage talking to garbage. Just one book talking to another book. Just one social media post talking to another social media post. It isn't reality.
But why does it matter? Like, why does the truth even matter in the first place?
It doesn't. And that's why I never recommend that anybody go towards it, right? So if you're trying to use that analogy, opening the door, it may not matter to you to open that door. But if you're standing at the door and you do happen to want to open it for whatever reason, then it matters. If you don't want to open that door, if you don't want to get inside that room, if you don't want to achieve X, Y, and Z, if you don't want to, become successful in X, Y, and Z, or even whatever you want to do, you don't have to do anything. But if you happen to want to, truth is the only real way. Everything else is spinning your wheels. So I will never say that you should go towards truth. In fact, if you corner me against a wall, I will say don't, because it's probably not for you. So I don't recommend anything. I just say where things are.
I mean, you seem to express some frustration around the fact that the world is.
That's because whenever I speak about the world, I have nothing but disdain. It's
if
just
it's
like
not for the
when you
truth?
look outside and you see, something that's putrefied, your mouth curls in disgust because the smell. So I could ask you, why did your mouth curl in disgust?
Fair enough. But for someone who is actually interested in seeking the truth, what would be a sign that would indicate that they are closer to realizing it?
I don't think it's about realizing the truth. I think it's about understanding that one's entire life is a lie.
And what good will that serve?
What good will that serve? Because if you don't know it, then you're going to keep living it. And how you
Realizing
can misunderstand me, and this is a pretty
Mm,
universal statement through everything that I say, how you can misunderstand me is to believe that I am telling you that you should either believe or look into or accept or even be interested in accepting that your life is a lie. Under no circumstances am I saying that. If you want to, you can. You might say, my life is not a lie. I'll say, that's fine. But if you think your first response, how will that do any good,
mm,
it
mm,
suggests that what you're saying is that's negative, right? That isn't a
sure.
positive message. That's what the taste coming out of your mouth, that's what it sounded like. Your reaction was to.
No, I was just amused by like, I mean, if your whole life is a lie, then great. But like,
If you say if your whole life is a lie, that means that
mm,
you haven't recognized that your life is a lie. And also, it would be wrong to assume that I'm telling you that your life is a lie and therefore you should believe me. None of those things go anywhere. If something resonates with you, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But under no circumstances is it that you should believe what I say, accept what I say, take it on faith. If it doesn't
sure.
come from your own examination, it has no relevance. It's just more words that you're adding to your garbage bin.
In your personal experience and learnings and assessment, why are we here? What's the point of all of this?
You know, I think that question only becomes relevant once one understands the acuteness of their situation. So you can't ask big questions if you're feeling the small ones. A person who can ask that question is the person who has found some way of living in freedom or peace or some level of arrival within themselves, and then they can examine that question. If your house is on fire, philosophy isn't your first goal. Okay? I mean, every human being in this life is suffering acutely, immediately, right now. Right now, every human being has 20, 30, 40 problems in their life. And to dismiss that and say, well, why are we here? That's just escapism. It's just philosophy. It's just turning one's back on the fire in their house. Now, I'm not saying that you should turn towards a fire in your house. I'm not saying that. You don't have to. I'm not saying that you shouldn't live in denial. I don't care what you should do and don't do. I'm not telling you what you should do. It doesn't matter to me, in all honesty. What I am saying is the reason I brought that up is if you ask philosophical questions, then it's of no use to entertain those because the fire is still going on and therefore it becomes chit chat. It's irrelevant. I could say we're here because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, so what?
At what stage does that question become relevant?
Something becomes relevant when it's immediately relevant to your life, right? So all of these podcasts that are going on all around the world, they're all at arm's length, right? They're all hee hee ha ha. This tell a joke, you talk nonsense, you talk garbage. Here's 5 steps. Here's 3 things to practice. Wake up at this time, take an ice bath, and then comb your hair to the left, not the right, and do 14 jumping jacks. Practice meditation, do mindfulness. I mean, there's nothing like nothing. There's no immediacy. Someone should get on the podcast and say, my life just miserable. I'm fighting over here. This is tragic in my life. I hate this going on. I have no idea what's going on. And I just want the answers to my life. I don't really care about philosophy. I don't care about mindfulness. I care about my house is on fire. My leg is broken. I'm bleeding through my arm. And that's relevant. But that doesn't sound nice. You see, that doesn't sound like a good poser before the audience to put on a good show and an entertainment.
You're a performance coach, right?
I don't know what I am, to be honest. Like, I have to put some words down sometimes, and I really don't know. I mean, that's a good way to stump me, is ask me what I do. I guess I try, using the truth, human beings tend to find themselves.
What do you think stops us from achieving that state in the first place?
Conditioning by living in the world. I'm not saying you should live in a cave. If you were to be locked in a room and you had loudspeakers on and speakers right next to your ears, like they do in circumstances of, prisoners of war and torture, you would hear the same things again and again, and that would become your way of being because that's all you know. And that conditioning is a systematic and intense and incessant deviation and removal of oneself from one's natural self. So from the moment that a human being is born, he's born natural and perfect. And from every single day from that moment, every single influence that he has is one more step in a direction that is out to sea. And after some point, he or she has no idea where they are, who they are, because they've just become a stooge for the world.
How do you, at a later stage of life, go back to realizing the core of who you are?
It's all about realization. There's no how to. If you have an itch on your back, how do you scratch it? There's no how to. The only things that matter are things that, human beings realize. And realizations create their own path. But it's kind of like, a person who has no interest in going to Paris, but they say, well, how do I get to Paris? Well, no, I mean, you can give all the how-tos you want. If the desire isn't really there, if it's just a curiosity, it doesn't really matter. Things don't work on curiosity. Things that really matter are things that really matter to someone, not I say that this should matter for you.
So, self realization is a very self driven process.
And even
And
the word, like every word you say, right? It's pregnant with conditioning. Every word you say, it's I know what you mean when you say it because it doesn't come from you. It comes from spirituality. The word self-realization, self-actualization, all this stuff, right? It's not pure. So, I mean, I almost want to tell people like, don't even say anything because it's you just plucked it from the tree of intellectualism and spirituality. So it isn't about self-realization. It's look, you have problems. Do you have problems in your life?
sure,
Have you solved them?
not entirely.
Okay. Do they still bother you?
Sure.
And are some problems serious? Serious in the sense of they're pervasive and they go on every single day and
Yes.
they've been going on for years. Well,
Yes.
that is your path. And it is natural, and I'm not going to say natural. It is logical to believe, and this is where everyone goes. And it's understandable. It's logical. I don't blame people from going there because that is the only message they've ever heard. It's all they've ever known. So it would be ludicrous to blame them for that. But you will naturally gravitate towards, or logically gravitate towards, well, I have problems. Now I need a fix. So I need to go towards self-help. I need to go towards mental models. I need to go towards spirituality and find some practices that I can do to lessen these problems, to get rid of these problems. That's that's entirely
Yeah, the
logical.
typical approach. Yes, correct.
And if something is mechanical, that's an effective approach because it's mechanical. So if you have a problem with your computer, someone can fix the motherboard. Either you replace the motherboard or you fix this or you fix that. That's a mechanical process. And therefore, prescriptions, how-tos, hacks, methods, techniques, these things work. But the things that plague humans are not mechanical problems. The things that plague humans, the things that humans suffer their entire lives, suffering and emotional pain and the weight upon the mind and anxiety and sorrow and conflict and fear. This is on the mechanical domain. So I'm not going to say if you seek a mechanical answer, I'm going to say you will. That's all you know. So when you seek a mechanical answer to those things, you don't have to believe me, but you won't find it. And that's why the human being is born. He suffers for his or her entire life, and then he dies suffering. That's because there is no mechanical solution to those things. And I can promise you that every human being, to varying degrees, has tried all types of mechanical. They read all kinds of books and listened to all kind of gurus and talks and lectures and podcasts and mastermind meetings and all this
Yeah, because
garbage, right?
we hate discomfort and we love shortcuts. Like, who doesn't? So,
The irony is that the greatest shortcut is the thing that actually works. And so even that word, even that phrase is pregnant with conditioning. It's all about shortcuts. Why wouldn't you take the shortest path? Do you take the longest route to work? Right? So why wouldn't you take the shortest path? It isn't about short versus long. It's about effectiveness versus not effectiveness. And effectiveness lives in truth. And truth isn't a good thing, just effective, because all there is.
What would be the more effective path in the context of what we just talked about? Is it to embrace or to conquer suffering?
Do you know in your life anybody in your life who wants to conquer suffering? Have you
Yes.
met a single person in your life who has mentioned that they want to conquer suffering? I didn't say they want to feel better. They don't want to feel. I didn't say that. I didn't say
Hmm.
that they would like to, lessen their suffering. Have you met a single human being in your life that wanted to conquer suffering?
Don't they want to?
No, I'm asking you, have you ever met someone like that?
I guess, yes.
Why guess?
Thinking of people who I've come across who have willingly embraced it and done something about it to rise above their circumstances.
That's a lot of words, though. Everyone's trying to rise above their suffering. Everyone is struggling. Everyone is trying to, on a minute-to-minute basis. Everyone does not want pain and they want pleasure. Everyone wants to lessen their suffering. But conquering suffering is an entirely different thing than wanting to not suffer.
How would you explain it based on your interpretation?
Well, conquering suffering is about finding the source of suffering and then never having it again. Buddha wanted to conquer suffering. He never wanted to suffer ever again. He didn't want to feel better. He didn't want to, do mental models. He didn't want to feel good. He wanted to end samsara. That's a whole other thing. It's a whole
Yeah.
different level. So what all human beings are is that they're just chasers, right? So
Yes.
you have, you go outside, you bang your arm against a wall, by accident, and you get a little scratch, or maybe you get a gush of blood. Okay, then you go get some ointment, or maybe you go to the doctor, you get a Band-Aid, or maybe even you get stitches. So every human being is using that for their suffering. Band-Aids, ointment, and once again, I don't blame them because it's all they know. But Band-Aids and ointment work fine for a small cut. But if your leg is torn off and you're hemorrhaging blood, Band-Aids and ointment are not going to do it. I mean, you're going to be sent into surgery. So the outpatient clinic isn't going to do it.
Yeah, the short lived hacks.
Yeah. And
Banded
so
and stuff. Yeah.
everyone's entire life is a very unserious, insincere, glancing blows at things that are fundamentally devastating to them. Because suffering is devastating. Every human being is trying to get away from it every single minute of their life. Every single minute of their life from morning until night. And that's why they chase pleasure. And yet, something that is so serious, that is so devastating, that is at the core and the center of their entire life, they have been conditioned to chase Band-Aids and tips and tricks, to bring a slingshot to a nuclear war. That's everyone's life.
So, like, conditioning is a big part of this whole equation, but aren't we also wired to seek the path of least resistance?
I don't know what you mean by that question. What do you mean by least resistance in this particular circumstance?
Like the path that makes it quicker and easier to reach somewhere, or more
And that would be fine.
comfortable, so
And
to
that would be
say.
fine if it did. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So absolutely. If a Band-Aid cured your suffering, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, but isn't the whole point to seek the truth, which gets missed in this process of hacks and shortcuts?
No, but what of what use would you have the truth, right? Of what value is the truth if putting a Band-Aid on your suffering cured your suffering? That would be the truth.
That solves it then. That's great.
100%. That's the truth. So if you did some hack and you were cured of anxiety, well, that is the truth. Cure is the truth.
So then, if that cure is the truth, then what distinguishes shortcuts versus longer lasting change, as in the case of Buddha?
These are more words. Why do you care about short term, long cut, medium cut if it works? Who
Because I
cares?
thought we were talking about the truth here, which is what you love talking about, which is what
If
your mission seems to
something
be.
works and is a cure and is permanent, that is the truth, whether it's short, medium, or long.
Okay, so you have no aversion to shortcuts and hacks. Is that what you're saying then?
I have no aversion to anything. You are equating, you are conflating prescriptions with shortcuts. To me, it's all about short. So that's the irony. I'm not interested in the long for long's sake, but actually the prescription is the long cut. And not only is it the long cut, it's the don't get you anywhere cut.
Well, like the more I hear your conversations, the more clear it becomes that we're pursuing freedom at a very superficial level, like the freedom to have more means, more time, more
First of all, it
access.
isn't about we. You have to forget
Okay,
we.
I. Okay,
Right.
I'll say I.
Okay, and even if it's I, it isn't just changing the word in a cosmetic fashion, right? It isn't just changing the pronoun.
I think I should stop talking. You just on yeah.
It is only about you. It's only about you. Every human being's life is about them. This do for others, just nonsense. I mean, it's not. It's probably the biggest poison that Buddhism has created is compassion for others and this for others and seek enlightenment for others. It's all garbage. You can't do that for others. Like others are inspired by seeing the Buddha, therefore they want to achieve it themselves. And the Buddha didn't do it for anybody. It's just pie in the sky. Just it's illiterate garbage.
What I was asking earlier is like freedom at the superficial level. And from what I understand of your teachings, freedom is about, or is what you experience when you discover the truth. Would that be correct?
Yes and no. So I think when anyone comes to my work, I think there are some universals, and these are the traps that everyone's going to fall into. And one of those universals is that instead of their life is I do this prescription and I get that. Okay, that's a lie. You won't. So then what they do is they read the my work and say, okay, so if I practice truth, I'll get that. And I'll say, no, you won't. In fact, I hope you don't. I don't even believe in hope, but in this case, I'll use it. I hope that if you practice truth to get something, I hope you never get it, because it isn't transactional. It isn't real. It isn't genuine, and you can understand that. If you want to be friends with someone because they can give you something, that isn't real, and they know it, and you
Transactional,
know
yeah.
it. It doesn't go anywhere because eventually they will see that you're trying to be opportunistic, and it won't go. So on that level, the inefficiency of such a approach is very relevant and very easy to see. But this is the same thing. Truth doesn't give a damn about you. I mean, the influencers may care about you, but they only care about you so that you'll follow them, because they'll read their book and then you'll read their work and you'll say good things about them, and that's the only reason. They don't care about you as like personally, right? No one cares about you. No one gives a damn besides maybe your parents, right? So everything has to be seen for what it is. Going through life with all these illusions, so and so cares about me, and so it's just not true.
Is
Now,
that
I'm not saying that you should see that reality. What I'm saying is that to do something in a mechanical way is nonsense. And it doesn't bring results, nor should it. If something is not genuine, if something is not pure, if something is not from the heart, if something is not sincere, if something is not serious, then a very just outcome is fall flat on your face and fail forever.
I'm also very intrigued by your ideas on indifference and detachment. Like, how does one balance this
There's no
dance?
balance.
What I was asking is this dance between desire for achievement and being indifferent or detached.
But there's no balance. That's still asking about balance. Balance is a complete farce. It's a concept. Once again, everything is conceptual. That's why all these spiritual teachings and self-help teachings, they're just fall flat on their face. You can't try to detach. Everything is about understanding. And understanding is about a deep and devotional desire to want to understand. So if one understands where things come from, then whatever needs to happen will happen. But everyone's a heavy-handed chaser because they're all taught to be. Everyone's conditioned to be. Go practice that. Go practice that. And once again, that's fine for mechanical things. If you want to become good at something on a physical level, then you must practice it. But I'm not talking about those things right now. I'm talking about, things that we talked about, like in the mind and finding peace or freedom or even, the highest levels of any craft. That enters into the domain of this as well.
Is it not true that the more you seek something, whether it's freedom, whether it's happiness, the more suffering you invite in your life?
So like right now, if I threw you into a lake
Mm-hmm.
and you didn't know how to swim, would you flail your arms and try to keep your head above water?
Yes.
Okay. Would you then ask the question that doesn't my attempt to survive just create a lot of extra effort for me? Would you ask that question?
No, I'll just focus on surviving.
That's right. And the reason that you would focus on surviving is because it's in your heart to want to survive. It wouldn't be a decision. It wouldn't be a mental calculation. It wouldn't be a mental model or some idiocy, right? It wouldn't be some influencer said so-and-so. And so if you want freedom, whether it brought suffering to you or not, it wouldn't matter to you because you already have suffering. But if someone desperately wants freedom, if it brings suffering, it brings suffering. But eventually they'll get freedom.
Will I be better off in having a more detached approach in life?
I can't tell you where you'll be better off. Once again, I don't know anything about you. It isn't about what I suggest to you. That's like asking me, what career should you choose? Whatever I tell you to do, you won't do it. And that's where all this self-help crap fails. Watching the guru give a lecture and then nodding your head and go back and do your old crap. I mean, it's all nonsense. It's called cosmetic. The thing that you're going to do is a thing that's in your heart, regardless of what anybody says. So everything depends upon what's in your heart. So if you're just asking for another prescription, and I tell you, yes, you should be more detached. It's not going to do any. The only things that matter are the things for which your hair's on fire. I'll be honest with you, I don't blow smoke. It might take 25 years to understand this conversation, whether it's for you or for somebody else or whatever it is. And it may not even happen in this lifetime or the next. And that isn't because it's so wonderful. And it isn't wonderful. It's not wonderful. There's nothing good about it. Like, I'm not good, right? It's just, this is like alien land. This is not how human beings think. And no, you're not going to change your thinking. Okay, just let me stop that right there before you get any ideas, right? Humans aren't wired to unwire themselves. The conditioning is too deep. Now, they weren't born that way, but they've been that way all their lives. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. But the conditioning is so deep, there's no way that they can hear a conversation like this. There's no way that they can hear these kinds of words without the lens of their conditioning. Therefore, they can only hear it through the lens of their conditioning. So all they can do is prescriptionize what I say and ask questions like, do you think I should be detached? But that's just the way it's going to be. That's why the idea of like helping the audience, it's so insincere. No audience is going to be helped. Now, there are some people who in their lives are on they have some desire for whatever the word is, whether it's truth or... So there are some people to whom it might resonate more than others. But even them, that's between them and the words. It isn't because of any attempt to, quote, help them. And I'm not blaming anybody, but there's no way, zero chance, that they're not going to hear that I'm advocating that. The reason that they will hear that I'm advocating it, even though I'm not, vehemently not, is because every single person in their life, every single guru they've listened to, every single expert they've heard, every single social media person that they've heard, every single book that they've read, and I mean without fail, 100%, are trying to give them a message. They are trying to advocate. They are recommending. And I'm not saying that's evil or wrong or bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying because that's all they know, then when I say something, their brain is going to say, oh, he's advocating for X, Y, and Z. And I'm not. But just because I'm not advocating for that doesn't mean I'm good. I'm just saying I have no interest in advocating that. So the only reason that I'm bringing this up is to hammer home the fact that when someone says that I advocated for that, no, I'm not. I did not advocate for that. And that's very critical because that's entirely what I'm against, is advocating for things, is prescribing. I don't say that you should become detached or that you should seek truth. That's entirely against everything that I'm devoted to. That's why it's critical to mention that. So much so that if someone asks me, should I seek truth? And if they need an answer, I'll say no. Right? If you want a prescription, don't do it. Because then at least it isn't being insincere. At least, there's no transactional nonsense going on. Well, there's no genuineness. I think it's putrid.
No, I agree on the genuineness. I mean,
You agree philosophically, because it's a nice
sure.
word, and because you don't think that people should be fake. On that level, you agree. But you don't understand the level of genuineness required for such endeavors.
And what makes you say that?
Your conditioning. Now, I'm not making a judgment as to what you're capable of, but I am making a factual statement of where you are.
Fact or your opinion?
No, fact. I have no interest in opinions. That isn't some test that you've passed or failed. It would be more unreasonable for you not to be there. The only way that you're not going to be there is if you're some alien who, when you're born, your entire life, you disregard anything and everything, and you spit fire against everything. You walk the other way when someone talks to you. You cover your ears when you enter a room. I mean, something like alien stuff like that, which no one is. I mean, I can't say no one is. There are a handful of people like that. And that wasn't their doing either, by the way. Like, that wasn't because they practiced. They were just born that way.
What is the path to taming the mind and creating more internal peace?
There's no path.
What is it then, if any?
There's nothing.
So there's no such thing as internal peace, or there's no such way to get there?
There's no way to get there. Now, does that mean that you can't get there? Absolutely not.
Have you got there?
That's a reasonable question, but it's irrelevant. Like, I think it would be best to consider me like just the worst heathen. That would make more sense. Just do that. Because I have no interest in saying, oh, yes, I got there. It's so hierarchical. It's such a social construct. I have no interest in saying, yes, I've gotten there. That's why I said it's best to consider me like the worst of the worst. Then that'll at least settle that. So we don't have to enter the flexing domain.
It's not about flexing, it's just being.
No, because you're acting as if I speak the truth, it's going to be heard as the truth. Right now, I'm speaking and it's going through a microphone, it's being processed, and that's going into a computer, and then it's going thousands of miles away. There's lots of processing going on there. I mean, typically what happens is, and I will never say this is universal, because every human being is different. Every human being has a different set of talents. Every human being has a different set of receptors. There are some universalities, and they're not like 100% universal, but they're largely predictable. For instance, everyone's going to fall for prescriptions. Everyone. I don't care if you're the next Buddha. You're going to fall for prescriptions. I guarantee it. That's all you've ever heard. It's all you know. That's the world that you live in. You have no other opposing type of thing that you ever heard. But what I will say is that typically what happens is people come to my work. Some people, for whatever crazy reason, happen to enjoy it. But a lot of people, I think, are offended by it. And they get angry. And they either leave forever or they come back and say, well, that was really offensive. And, it was a shotgun between my eyes, but I can't deny that it was true. And therefore I've come back. And the fact that they came back, I don't care if they came back. These are things that I never predicted. These are things that I've learned from listening to people. these things are not like you hear it, then you put it in your pocket, and then you go away. That works for prescriptions. That works for garbage. It doesn't work for this. I mean, this is for a very, 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 very specific individual.
When you said this, what do you mean? This is for?
Truth. Devotion to truth. Conquering the mind, overcoming the world. Truth is for a serious human. I was going to say humans, but it isn't really plural.
But if the entire construct from the very beginning is designed in a way that you've outlined in this conversation, which is to do with prescriptions and shortcuts and hacks, then how many people really have that tendency or disposition to do some genuine truth seeking?
Well, that's what I just said. Almost no one. There's maybe a handful in the world. And then how many people, as a result, do you see who become a Buddha, who become a Jesus? You see your whole neighborhood becoming Jesus?
No way. I mean,
Okay, so everyone in your
different
neighborhood,
priorities
but,
and
but
different
everyone in your
problems.
neighborhood is doing meditation and mindfulness and doing the 5 ways to become happy and the 6 crap ways to do crap, right? They're all doing that. There's plenty to do those, but there's no one who's serious. And what's implied in my statement is that people should be serious. So no, they shouldn't. If they are, they are. If they're not, they're not. If they're not, you're not going to make them. And if they are, you're not going to unmake them. It's about reality. It's not about nonsense
Yeah,
and
but
garbage.
it's not about should or should not. It's about
100%.
you choose to invest your time with people who are serious about
But,
pursuing and seeking the truth.
well, I don't think it's about pursuing people. It's either you are or you're not. There's no like group. Group is the devil. Where there's a group, there cannot be truth. By definition, it is mutually exclusive.
I mean, so far off from what you're saying is this whole our virtual construct that's made us victims of what I call the validation crisis. And on the other end, of course, is like, moving away from that and focusing on like the larger essence or things of life or whatever you want to call it. Like, I mean, is there a way to liberate ourselves from this need for constant approval?
No, because you don't want to. See, you asked that in such a prescriptive manner.
I think I
Prior
forgot to talk
statement
on
you
it.
mentioned about should and should not. See, I'm just holding a mirror up to you, right? I'm not saying that you did wrong. I'm saying that's early when you asked me, how do you know what's your opinion? It's not my opinion.
No, you're right, because I
And
did
so
ask in a way that
that's
how do we
the
liberate?
conditioning, right?
Yeah.
So there's no
yeah.
way that you're not going to ask a question that isn't prescriptive. And then what you're going to hear is, oh, I said that you shouldn't follow prescriptions. No,
Okay, for
I'm
the
not
sake
saying
of
you shouldn't follow
learning,
prescriptions. Listen, if you find that putting on a Band-Aid cures your anxiety, I think you would be stupid to take off the Band-Aid.
not to. Yeah. With this example, for my own learning and genuinely, what would be a way that would like indicate not being a prescriptive question and a genuine or truth-seeking
But
question?
why do you not want to be a prescriptive question? So before this podcast, have you had a bunch of podcasts?
Yeah, yeah, 102. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ask questions that were prescriptive in every single one of those?
From how you describe it, sure.
Okay. And did you receive answers that were prescriptive in every single one of those?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So then why do you now want to ask a non-prescriptive question? It's because
I'm curious to learn another way. We spent 1 hour on this conversation. I want to learn more about like what it takes or means to.
then maybe you should ask about prescriptions instead of asking me how you can follow the rule of not asking a prescriptive question, right? I'm not telling you that you shouldn't be prescriptive. I mean, I can't tell you, I can't explain to you the depth of what I'm saying there, of how it is not my intent or desire or care or interest to have you to be non-prescriptive. I'm saying that whatever realizations happen, they don't happen because someone said something. They happen because you examine them for yourself and you see for yourself and you say, well, have prescriptions worked for me? So that's what my entire last book was all about. There is no how. It's all about, did the prescription work for you? If it does, why would you want to be non-prescriptive? If it doesn't, then why would you be prescriptive? But in either of those scenarios, it has nothing to do with because I said anything.
Yeah, but you see, the reason why this becomes a problem is because everything becomes about a question being prescriptive, and we can't seem to move beyond that.
And
Because we don't like
that
answering
is yet
certain
another
questions.
mirror of the conditioning. It's all problems, right? It's all problems,
Yeah.
right? It's all problems. So there's no way that you're going to get out of that. You can only be even more enslaved by that problem by adding a new thing about no prescriptions. Then you're adding another prescription. If people don't understand me, they
Yeah.
say, oh, he says no prescriptions. They don't understand. They're idiots. They don't understand anything I say, right? They're just flower pickers, right? Like, they don't go into the deep of anything. They're stupid. And I go out of my way, if you read, say, under no circumstance do I say that you shouldn't. None of my books, none of my writings have ever said that you should not, follow prescriptions, and examine for yourself. I don't have any interest in, like, if every single person, right, who listened to this podcast, and every single person who read my book, and every single person in the entire world, let's say the word got around, right, stopped listening to prescriptions, it wouldn't do anything for me. I could not care less. It's about what it does for them. And that's not me being good, by the way, either. I just want to dispel that too, so that I'm not saying that, others can get benefit. It isn't about my benefit, it's about their benefit. I don't care about their benefit, but they do. That's why it's good for them, because they care about their benefit. So if they benefit from it, that's good for them. I don't feel good. I don't feel bad. It's about reality. It's not about pie in the sky. It's not about lying and faking and artificiality and posing and, all this just pleasantry nonsense. The world is garbage. And humans are garbage seekers because they have been conditioned to become so.
At what stage of your life did you have this realization about the world at large?
I don't know, but I don't know. And it's irrelevant.
Hmm.
Like, what if it was at age what? I mean, what does that do for you, right? Doesn't matter.
Is there something that you've changed your mind about recently?
No,
So whatever you think is fixed?
not about what I think. It's about what the truth says. And truth isn't, doesn't hold up its finger to the wind. Truth is an opinion or fact or belief.